Jesus could have stopped it all. When I was a kid, learning how to lead singing, my favorite song to lead was always number 238B. That number will forever be ingrained in my memory. Not sure why the songbooks back then had certain songs that would have a B. I think it was because the book was revised and certain songs were added and they didn't want to redo all the numbers. So that was one of the songs that was, I think, added at some point, 238B, which is the same song that we led this morning, 10,000 Angels. What a powerful song that is. It was always one of my favorites growing up. Still one of my favorites. We don't sing it a whole lot. I think we should sing it more. I really, really love that song. The chorus says he could have called 10,000 angels to destroy the world and set him free. He could have called 10,000 angels, but he died alone for you and me. What a powerful message that is. That song is based on a verse in Matthew 26. It's verse 53. I don't want to read that yet. I want to build up to that verse. But I want us to discuss this morning this idea that Jesus could have stopped it all, and he did not. So I want to start by talking about just the power of Jesus. Let's just think about his power for a moment. When he was on earth, he cast demons out of people. He healed people who were sick. He raised the dead. He forgave people's sin by just saying the word, and their sin was forgiven. In passages like Colossians 1, we learn that everything that was made by God through Jesus. That Jesus was involved in the creation process, that all things were made by him, everything, whether visible or invisible. Everything was made through him and for him. In fact, this entire universe is being held together by the word of his power. Think about that. That's power we cannot begin to wrap our heads around. Not only was he involved in the creation of the world, but Jesus will one day judge the world. God has given him authority to do that. In fact, Jesus said in Matthew 28, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. So every soul, on the day of judgment, every soul that has ever existed will stand before Jesus as their judge. God will judge the world through him, and our eternal destiny rests in his hands. It's power, indeed. And Jesus talked about in John chapter 5, don't marvel at this, that he will one day judge the world, but Jesus essentially says, I'll tell you something even more amazing. At the end of times, Jesus says, when I return, at my voice, at my command, every single person who has ever existed from Adam and Eve until the last person who will ever live will rise from the dead. Just at his command. Again, infinite power we cannot begin to fathom. And yet, even though Jesus had all of that power, he did not abuse any of that power to prevent his death on the cross. He didn't use that power to stop what happened. Think about it. In John chapter 10, Jesus talks about, he said, no one takes my life from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. He said, I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it up again. It's amazing. The Greek word translated power is dunamis, from which we get the word dynamite. Jesus said, I have power to lay it down. I have power to take my life up again. Essentially, Jesus raised himself from the dead because God gave him the power to do that. Again, we can't fathom that. Now, what I want us to do is turn our Bibles to John 18. Open your Bibles to John chapter 18. And we're going to kind of explore this idea that Jesus could have stopped it all as we talk about some events right before Jesus actually was arrested. And I'm going to read the first 11 verses. We're going to stop and make some comments as we go along, but we'll start here in verse 1. When Jesus had spoken these words, and that is the beautiful prayer recorded in John 17 that we call the high priestly prayer. When he had spoken these words, he went forth with his disciples over the ravine of the Kidron, where there was a garden, in which he entered with his disciples. This was the Garden of Gethsemane. Now Judas also, who was betraying him, knew the place, for Jesus had often met there with his disciples. Judas then, having received the Roman cohort and officers from the chief priests and the Pharisees, came there with lanterns and torches and weapons. Let's pause for a second. This is a Roman cohort. That's 1/10 of a Roman legion, 600 Roman soldiers. With their armor, coming in the dead of the night with their torches, lanterns, weapons, ready for a fight, for whatever might come. I mean, if you send 600 Roman soldiers, you're expecting the possibility of a showdown of some size. And they're teamed up with the Jewish authorities. It's just like the saying, you know, the enemy of my enemy is my enemy. And so these two who should be enemies were paired up together because they had a common enemy here. And that's Jesus. Verse 4. Now, I just want, before we read verse 4, just picture this. You've got these guys coming, these soldiers, and it's the dead of the night, and it's dark, and they've got their lanterns and torches. Just see the scene and try to be in their shoes for a minute, what they're expecting here. They're expecting anything could happen. All right, now verse 4. So Jesus, knowing all the things that were coming upon him, went forth and said to them, Whom do you seek? They answered him, Jesus the Nazarene. He said to them, I am he. And Judas also, who was betraying him, was standing with them. Now, do you think they were expecting that? I mean, the very guy that they came to capture rather, to just come out before them and say, hey, I'm the one you're looking for. No, that's the last thing they would have expected. That's the last thing they would have expected. And they wouldn't have been able to recognize him because it was dark, and many of them didn't even know really what Jesus looked like. Of the Romans especially. I'm assuming the Jewish leaders all knew what Jesus looked like. But we continue in verse 6. So when he said to them, now this is so interesting. When he said to them, I am he, they drew back and fell to the ground. Now John is just an eyewitness recording this. He doesn't tell us why they fell to the ground, but just try to think about that for a minute. These are Roman soldiers. They're used to the heat of battle. They're not easily startled or taken aback, but for some reason, I don't know if it was just the presence of Jesus and being in the presence of that power. I don't know what it was, but when Jesus said, I am he, these soldiers just start falling all over each other like a bunch of drunk people. It's almost humorous to imagine. Verse 7, therefore, he again asked them, whom do you seek? And they said, Jesus the Nazarene. I mean, he has to ask them twice. He essentially says 2 times, hey, guys, I'm right here. I'm the guy you're looking for. I'm not going anywhere, okay? I'm right here. Who's in control here? Jesus is in absolute control of all these people that are about to capture him. Absolute control. Verse 8, Jesus answered, I told you that I am he. So if you seek me, let these go their way, talking about his apostles. To fulfill the word which he spoke of those whom you have given me, I lost not one. Simon Peter then, having a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's slave and cut off his right ear. Don't you wish you knew what this guy's name was? And the slave's name was Malchus. John was an eyewitness. And apparently he knew who this Malchus was. Now, do you think that Peter did that because he just thought, you know what I'll do here? I know how to stop this Roman threat. I know how to make them turn and flee. I'll get my sword and I'll go over here and I'll cut off Malchus's ear. And they'll just run scared if they see that I did that. No, of course that's not. He was trying to kill Malchus. He's trying to cut his head off or in half, and he missed. And Malchus got his ear cut off. But you see, Peter was ready to kill these guys. He was ready for a fight to the death. And he fully expected Jesus to do something like call down angels and just wipe all these pathetic Romans out and these Jewish enemies. That's actually who Peter was attacking here. Now let's continue reading here. Verse 11. So Jesus said to Peter, "Put the sword into the sheath. The cup which the Father has given me, shall I not drink it?" So fascinating. Earlier that evening he had prayed, "Father, let this cup pass from me." And now he is saying, that cup which my Father has given me, I am determined to drink that cup, Peter. Now what I want us to do is turn to Matthew 26, and we're going to pick up in the narrative with exactly this very conversation Jesus was having with Peter. And we're going to look at some other things Jesus said to Peter in Matthew 26, starting in verse 52. Matthew 26, starting in verse 52. Then Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back into its place." We saw that in John. Here's something else he said. "For all those who take up the sword shall perish by the sword." But then we have something else he said, which is our key verse. Verse 53. "Or do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and He will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? How then will the Scriptures be fulfilled which say that it must happen this way?" 12 legions of angels. Now I'll just tell you right now, that's a lot more than 10,000. The song says 10,000 angels. Why doesn't it say 12 legions of angels? I'm assuming the syllables just wouldn't work. You can't say, he could have called more than 12 legions of angels in the chorus. It just wouldn't have fit with the syllables that need to be said. So it's 10,000 angels. It sounds nice, but it was a lot more than 10,000. It's 12 legions. Now I told you earlier that the Roman cohort that came was 600. That was 1/10 of a legion. A legion was 6,000. Jesus said, "I can call more than 12 legions." 6,000 times 12 is 72,000. Jesus said, "I could have called more than that." And he's not talking about that he could summon up, 72,000 more than that of his followers to come and fight. He's saying he could call that many angels. Now, think of the power of one angel for a moment. We all know what happened with Hezekiah in the time of Judah alone, after the northern kingdom had been destroyed by Assyria, and then Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came and destroyed many of the cities of the southern kingdom of Judah, and finally came against Jerusalem and was ready to just about to wipe it out. And God sent an angel, one angel, that killed 185,000 Assyrian soldiers in one night. That's the power of one angel. Do you think if Jesus had just wanted to call one angel, that one angel could have deftly handled 600 meager Roman soldiers? One angel could have wiped out the whole Roman army. Jesus said, "I could have called more than 72,000. What could 72,000 do? Well, easily destroy the whole world, or whatever it is that Jesus wanted to do to save himself or accomplish whatever it was he wanted to set forth. But of course, he wanted to do the Father's will. He did not call those angels to come. He allowed himself to be arrested, to be tried, to be beaten, and to be crucified. And so as we take the Lord's Supper today, it's important that we realize we are not memorializing a tragic accident that happened 2,000 years ago. This was no accident. We are memorializing a purposeful sacrifice, a willing sacrifice of one who had all power, who could have stopped his death on the cross, but chose not to. And why did he do that? Why didn't he stop it all? Well, it was to fulfill prophecy, as he told Peter. It was to do the Father's will. But another reason that is so elegantly expressed in the song that we sang is in the chorus. He could have called 10,000 angels to destroy the world and set him free. He could have called 10,000 angels, but he died alone. Why? For you and me. Jesus, the one who healed the sick, the one who cast out demons, the one who raised the dead, the one who forgave sin with his words, the one through whom the worlds were created, the one through whom the entire universe is held together at his word, the one who will one day judge the world, the one who will raise all the dead, Jesus, who has infinite power, who has all authority in heaven and on earth. He submitted that power on the cross to save you and me who have no power, who are weak and helpless and absolutely unworthy in and of ourselves of His grace. He could have stopped it all, but He didn't, because He loves us. He loved the whole world that much. Hope these thoughts encourage you this morning.